Ugochi and her husband Naza were the wealthiest couple in their village. They lived in a grand mansion on the hill, overlooking the lush landscape. Amara was known for her beauty, elegance, and the air of authority she carried. The villagers reverenced her, admiring her grace and the way she carried herself. Yet, behind the walls of their mansion, there was a stark contrast to her public persona. Despite their wealth and social standing, Ugochi and Naza's home was silent. The laughter and footsteps of children were absent, a void that filled Ugochi with a deep, unspoken sorrow. They had everything they could ever want, but Ugochi's longing for a child haunted her every day. This emptiness translated into bitterness as she took out all her frustration on her maids and servants. Ugochi's servants lived in fear of her wrath. She was demanding and harsh, never satisfied with their work. The maids often whispered among themselves, wondering what had turned their mistress so cold. She was especially hard on the younger maids, as if their youth and innocence reminded her of what she could never have. One sunny afternoon, Ugochi decided to take a stroll through the village market, accompanied by her maids. The market was bustling with activity, and Ugochi enjoyed the attention she received from the villagers. As they made their way through the stalls, a small, dirty-looking girl caught Ugochi's eyes. The girl in question, no older than 10 or 11, looked desperate and hungry. Her clothes were tattered, and she moved with the stealth of someone used to surviving on the streets. As Ugochi paused to inspect a piece of jewelry, the girl reached out and tried to snatch her purse, but she was caught by one of the maids before she could even escape. Furious and angry, Ugochi demanded to know why the girl had tried to steal from her. The girl, trembling with fear, confessed that she was starving and had no family to care for her. Ugochi's anger was momentarily replaced by pity, but she was quickly hardened again in her heart. She decided to take the girl back to her mansion as punishment, forcing her to serve her for a year to pay for her crime. The girl, whose name was Ada, was brought to the mansion and given a place among the other maids. She was given the most menial tasks and was constantly berated by Ugochi. Despite her harsh treatment, Ada worked diligently, hoping to survive her year of servitude. As the weeks passed, Ugochi's treatment of Ada grew even harsher. For some reason, she seemed to take particular pleasure in making the girl's life difficult. The other maids felt sorry for Ada, but they were too afraid of Ugochi to intervene. Ada, however, bore the brunt of Ugochi's cruelty with a quiet strength that intrigued the other servants. Unknown to everyone, Ugochi's harshness towards Ada was driven by a deep, hidden sorrow. Years ago, before she married Naza, Ugochi had given birth to a child out of wedlock. Fearing disgrace, she had abandoned the baby at a distant village and vowed never to speak of it again. The pain of that decision lingered in her heart, festering over the years. Despite the maltreatment, Ada began to feel a strange connection to Ugochi. There were moments when she saw a softness in Ugochi's eyes, a hint of a woman's buried pain. Ada couldn't explain it, but she felt drawn to her cruel mistress in a way that transcended the bounds of servant and master. One day, as Ugochi was beating Ada for a minor mistake, she noticed a small crescent-shaped birthmark on Ada's shoulder. A chill ran down her spine as she recognized the mark. It was the same birthmark she had given her daughter just before she abandoned her. Memories flooded back, and Ugochi's world tilted on its axis. However, she decided that it was just a coincidence and didn't want to think about it for too long. Days later, while she was beating Ada again for just a minor mistake, she came across the birthmark again on Ada's shoulder. This time, she was haunted by the realization that just maybe she was onto something. Ugochi secretly investigated Ada's past. She discovered that Ada had been found abandoned as a baby in the same village where she had left her own child. The pieces began to fall into place, and Ugochi was faced with the horrifying truth. Ada was her long-lost daughter. Ugochi's initial reaction was one of denial. She couldn't believe and accept that the girl she had been maltreating and beating up was her own flesh and blood. She struggled with the guilt and shame of her past actions, unsure of how to move forward. The weight of her secret grew heavier with each passing day. She could not bring herself to talk to Ada about it, nor her husband. Slowly, Ugochi's treatment of Ada began to change. She became less harsh and more thoughtful, though she still maintained her stern exterior. The other maids noticed the change, but was unsure of its cause. Ada too was confused by Ugochi's shifting demeanor. One evening, unable to bear the weight of her secret any longer, Ugochi called Ada to her chambers. Her heart pounded as she prepared to confess the truth to Ada. She had spent countless nights agonizing over this moment, rehearsing what she would possibly say. Now, standing in her dimly lit chamber, she felt a mixture of fear and hope. "Come in, Ada," Ugochi said softly. Ada entered, cautiously, unsure of what to expect. She noticed the unusual softness in Ugochi's voice and the vulnerability in her eyes. "You wanted to see me, madam," Ada said, her tone respectful but tinged with curiosity. "Yes, Ada, please, sit down." Ugochi gestured to the chair opposite her. Ada sat down, her heart racing. She had never seen Ugochi like this, so unguarded, almost fragile. "Ada, there's something I need to tell you. Something that has been weighing heavily on my heart for a long time," Ugochi began, her voice trembling slightly. Ada remained silent, her eyes fixed on Ugochi, sensing the gravity of the moment. Ugochi took a deep breath and said, "Many years ago, before I married Naza, I had a child out of wedlock. It was a different time, and I was afraid of the disgrace it would bring me and my family. So I made a terrible mistake. I abandoned my baby in a distant village." Ada's eyes widened in shock. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Her thoughts raced, but she stayed quiet, letting Ugochi continue. "I thought I could forget, but the guilt has haunted me every single day since then. Recently, I discovered something that I can no longer keep from you." Ugochi paused, her voice choked with emotion. "Ada, you are that child. You are my daughter." The room fell into a heavy silence. Ada's mind reeled as she tried to process the revelation. She was angry, confused, and pain surged through her. You're my mother," Ada finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, Ada," Ugochi replied, tears streaming down her face. "I am so sorry for everything. For abandoning you, for treating you so harshly. I was blinded by my own pain and regrets." Ada stood up, unsure of how she was feeling. "How could you?" How could you abandon your own child and then treat me like this when I came into your life again?" Ugochi bowed her head, unable to meet Ada's eyes. "I have no excuse, Ada. I was a coward and a fool. I let my fear and shame drive me to make the worst decision of my life. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I couldn't go on living this lie. Please, Ada, take all the time you need," Ugochi said, her voice filled with a mix of hope and despair. "I will wait, and I will do everything within my power, whatever it takes to prove that I'm worthy of your forgiveness." Ada nodded, tears welling in her eyes. She left the room, her heart heavy with a mix of emotions. Ugochi watched her go, praying silently for a chance to heal the wounds she had caused. As the days went by, Ada couldn't believe that the woman who had caused her so much pain was her mother. But as the days passed, she began to see the depth of Ugochi's remorse and the sincerity of her attempts to make amends. Slowly, they began the painful process of reconciliation. The journey towards healing was not very easy. Ugochi and Ada had many wounds to mend, both old and new. But with time and efforts, they began to rebuild a relationship based on mutual understanding and forgiveness. The other maids witnessing this transformation were inspired by their courage and resilience. As Ugochi and Ada grew closer, the atmosphere in the mansion began to change. Ugochi's bitterness and loneliness began to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and joy. The maids, once fearful of their mistress, now saw her as a woman capable of love and kindness. Ugochi and Ada's story spread throughout the village, touching the hearts of many. The villagers, who had once revered Ugochi for her wealth and status, now respected her for her strength and humility. Ugochi learned to accept herself and her past, finding peace in her relationship with Ada. One rainy afternoon, as Ugochi was returning from a visit to the market, her carriage skidded off the road and crashed into a tree. The accident left her severely injured, and when she awoke, she found that she had lost her sight. Devastated and frightened, she felt her whole world crumble around her. Ada, upon hearing the news, rushed to her mother's side. Despite their rocky past, she stayed by Ugochi's side, caring for her with unwavering dedication. As Ugochi adjusted to her new life of darkness, she relied heavily on Ada, who became her eyes and her strength. The bond between mother and daughter deepened in ways neither of them could have ever imagined. Ugochi, once a figure of pride and authority, learned to embrace vulnerability and love. Ada, on the other hand, the child who she had abandoned and maltreated, showed her the true meaning of forgiveness and compassion.